My beloved child, stay exactly where you are for one quiet moment, because there are some messages that lose their meaning the instant too many eyes fall upon them. This is one of them. If these words have reached you today, it is not because someone sent them by accident. It is because something inside your own journey recognized the timing before your mind ever could. Strange, isn't it? Out of everything you could have been watching, you arrived here. That alone should make you curious enough to remain until the final sentence of this moment. Imagine, just for a second, that the person your heart has been silently connected to felt an unexplainable urge today. No loud announcement. No dramatic event. Just an invisible pull telling them to step away from every distraction. To leave the noise outside. To close the door behind them. To sit in silence without knowing why. They could not explain it to anyone around them. Even if they tried, the words would never sound convincing. Yet the feeling refused to disappear. Have you ever noticed how life's greatest turning points rarely begin with fireworks? They begin with stillness. A pause that seems ordinary until much later, when every scattered piece suddenly fits together. That is why this message matters. It speaks about the moments that happen before everything changes, the moments most people ignore because they appear too quiet to matter. There is something extraordinary about a closed door. It does not lock people out. Sometimes, it locks distractions away. Beyond that simple action, thoughts become louder. Hidden emotions stop whispering and begin speaking clearly. The future, which once seemed covered in fog, starts revealing small outlines that were always there. Your soulmate is standing closer to one of those moments than either of you realize. Pause with that thought. What if the room they enter today becomes the place where they finally stop running from a truth they have postponed for far too long? Not because someone forced them. Not because circumstances demanded it. Because something within them has become impossible to ignore. You may wonder why this matters to you. The answer is simpler than it first appears. Every meaningful connection has invisible echoes. When one heart becomes honest, another heart begins feeling the shift long before words are exchanged. That is why some mornings feel unexpectedly lighter. That is why certain evenings carry unexplained hope. Invisible movements often happen before visible changes ever arrive. Think back over the last few days. Have unusual memories surfaced without invitation? Have familiar songs suddenly carried different meanings? Have random moments of silence felt strangely comforting instead of empty? People dismiss these experiences as coincidence. Yet coincidence has an interesting habit of appearing right before life introduces something unforgettable. Here is another question. If someone placed a mirror before your soulmate, not to reflect their appearance, but to reveal every feeling they have hidden from themselves, would they be ready to look? The answer is changing. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Something has quietly shifted inside their perspective. It did not happen in one dramatic conversation. It happened through countless tiny moments they barely noticed. Every smile they remembered. Every lesson they learned. Every regret they carried. Every possibility they imagined. Like drops of rain filling a river, each experience slowly became impossible to separate from the next. That growing awareness is leading them toward a decision they once believed could wait forever. But time has a remarkable way of removing excuses. Listen carefully. There comes a season in every meaningful connection when silence no longer protects anyone. It only delays clarity. Your soulmate is approaching that exact season. They may not fully understand why their thoughts keep returning to the same place. They may try distracting themselves with routines, conversations, responsibilities, even endless activity. Yet every road circles back to one question they cannot escape. What if I've been preparing for something much bigger than I realized? Questions like that never appear without purpose. They arrive because the future has already started moving before anyone notices. You might think the title of this message sounds unusual. Why would someone need to go into their room and close the door? Because the loudest answers are almost never heard in crowded places. They arrive when everything unnecessary becomes quiet enough for truth to speak. And right now, whether they admit it or not, your soulmate is being invited into exactly that kind of silence. But this is only the surface. There is another layer to this story, one that explains what they begin to realize after the door closes, why a single unexpected thought changes the direction of everything they believed, and how that realization creates a connection neither of you saw coming. Stay with this journey, because the next chapter begins where silence ends. Something unexpected is already unfolding, not in the world everyone can see, but in the quiet space where decisions are born before they are ever spoken aloud. The door has closed. The noise has faded. And now, for the first time in a long while, your soulmate is alone with the one voice they have been avoiding, their own. There is no audience in that room. No one to impress. No one to convince. No one to blame. Just a heartbeat, 1,000 unfinished thoughts, and a feeling that refuses to disappear. They try to distract themselves for a moment. They look around the room. They reach for something familiar. Yet nothing feels quite the same. Even the silence seems different, as though it is carrying a message that cannot be translated into ordinary words. Have you ever experienced a moment when time seemed to slow down, not because the clock changed, but because your awareness suddenly became sharper? Every tiny detail begins to matter. Every memory returns with surprising clarity. That is exactly where your soulmate finds themselves now. One memory appears. Then another. Soon they are no longer remembering events, they are understanding them. The conversations they once dismissed suddenly carry hidden meaning. The moments they believed were insignificant begin connecting like pieces of an invisible puzzle. Faces, places, emotions, all of them align in a way they never expected. And somewhere in the middle of those reflections, your presence quietly appears. Not dramatically. Not forcefully. Simply, naturally. It is almost as though every path of thought keeps leading back to the same destination. You. This realization surprises them more than they would ever admit aloud. They had convinced themselves that life would become simpler by pushing certain emotions aside. They believed enough time could silence unanswered questions. Yet time has done something completely different. Instead of erasing those feelings, it has refined them. What once felt uncertain now feels unmistakably clear. Think about this for a moment. What if every delay had been preparing both of you for a version of yourselves that was stronger, wiser, and finally capable of recognizing what truly matters? Perhaps nothing was late. Perhaps everything arrived exactly when it needed to. That thought lingers in their heart longer than expected. Outside, the world continues at its usual pace. Cars move. Phones ring. Conversations begin and end. But inside that room, something far more important is happening. A quiet transformation is taking place, one decision at a time. No one else knows. No one else needs to know. Some of life's greatest shifts happen without applause. Your soulmate begins asking themselves questions they have never dared to ask honestly. What have I been protecting myself from? What if my greatest opportunity has been waiting patiently instead of chasing me? What if the connection I've been trying to explain was never meant to be explained, only understood? Each question opens another door inside their mind. And behind every door is a little more courage. A little more clarity. A little less fear. That is how lasting change begins. Not through one dramatic moment, but through many honest ones. There is another detail you cannot overlook. As they sit there, something familiar begins to feel distant, while something distant suddenly feels incredibly close. Their priorities are quietly rearranging themselves. The things that once demanded all their attention are losing their grip. Meanwhile, the people who genuinely matter begin occupying more space in their thoughts than ever before. That is not coincidence. That is awareness awakening. And awareness changes everything. Before long, they realize there is one conversation they can no longer postpone forever. The words are not fully formed yet, but the intention is growing stronger with every passing minute. They do not know exactly how it will happen. They only know that remaining silent no longer feels like the easiest choice. That realization carries incredible power. Because every meaningful journey reaches a point where uncertainty gives way to intention. Perhaps this very moment is that point. If this message has resonated with you so far, perhaps leave a comment sharing the one word that best describes what you're feeling today. And if stories like this help you reflect in a positive way, you might enjoy subscribing so you don't miss the next chapter of this unfolding journey. But don't let your attention drift just yet. Because what happens after they finally stand up from that chair, after they reach for the doorknob? After they take one slow breath before opening the door again, is the part no one could have predicted. And that single moment will reveal why today was never an ordinary day at all. Wait, because the moment the handle begins to turn, something inside your soulmate changes before the door even opens. It is subtle. Invisible. Yet it is more powerful than any conversation they could have rehearsed. There is a difference between someone leaving a room and someone leaving behind the version of themselves that no longer fits who they are becoming. Today, without realizing it, they are stepping into that second reality. For a brief instant, they pause again. Not out of fear. Not out of uncertainty. But because they recognize that the person who entered this room is not the same person who is about to walk back into the world. That realization carries a quiet strength. The kind that never needs to announce itself. The kind that changes choices before it changes circumstances. And that is why this message found you. Because while your soulmate has been discovering new clarity, something equally important has been happening within your own journey. There have been moments when you felt like giving up on what you could not see. Moments when patience felt heavier than hope. Moments when you questioned whether unseen progress was happening at all. Yet unseen progress is often the most important kind. Consider how a sunrise begins. The horizon does not suddenly explode with light. First, there is darkness. Then a faint glow. Then colors that almost seem imaginary. Only afterward does everyone say, "The sun has risen." But the transformation began long before anyone noticed it. Your connection has been moving in exactly that way. Quietly. Steadily. Without demanding attention. Your soulmate walks toward a window almost without thinking. Outside, everything looks familiar, yet somehow different. The same streets. The same sky. The same passing moments. But clarity has a remarkable ability to change what ordinary eyes overlook. They begin noticing possibilities where they once saw limitations. They begin remembering kindness instead of disappointment. They begin imagining tomorrow without carrying yesterday's weight. And then, one thought arrives so unexpectedly that they actually stop moving. What if this connection has never been asking me to become someone else? What if it has been inviting me to become my truest self? That single question echoes through every memory they have been revisiting. Suddenly, the story they had been telling themselves no longer makes sense. They had believed distance meant endings. Now they wonder whether distance was creating perspective. They had believed silence meant absence. Now they wonder whether silence was making room for understanding. They had believed waiting meant standing still. Now they recognize that waiting has been shaping both hearts in ways neither could have imagined. Notice how quickly one honest realization can rewrite an entire chapter of life. Not by changing the past, but by changing the meaning of the past. That is one of the greatest gifts awareness can offer. As this understanding grows, something remarkable begins happening. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" your soulmate starts asking, "What has this prepared me for?" The difference between those two questions is enormous. One looks backward. The other opens the future. And every meaningful future begins with someone brave enough to ask a better question. Perhaps that is why this message feels so personal. Perhaps you were never meant to hear dramatic predictions or impossible promises. Perhaps you were meant to remember something far more valuable. The strongest connections are not built on constant certainty. They are built on consistent growth. Growth that continues even when no one is watching. Growth that transforms ordinary days into unforgettable turning points. Your soulmate smiles for a reason they cannot completely explain. It is not because every answer has arrived. It is because they no longer need every answer before taking the next step. That quiet confidence is new. It feels unfamiliar. Yet it also feels strangely like home. There will always be voices that encourage hesitation. There will always be distractions competing for attention. There will always be reasons to postpone what truly matters. But clarity has a gentle persistence. Once it enters the heart, it keeps returning until it is acknowledged. And today, it has been acknowledged. The next choice they make may appear ordinary to everyone else. A message. A conversation. A simple moment of honesty. Nothing dramatic on the surface. Yet some of the biggest chapters of life begin with actions so small that almost everyone overlooks them. You are not hearing this story by chance. You are hearing it at the exact moment when its meaning is ready to unfold. Because the next chapter is not about what happened behind the closed door. It is about what follows after the first courageous step beyond it. And why that single step quietly begins changing two journeys at the very same time. The next moment arrives more quietly than anyone would expect, yet history is often rewritten by moments that make almost no sound at all. Your soulmate takes that first step beyond the closed door, carrying something invisible but unmistakable, a new understanding that refuses to fade. Nothing around them has changed. The same walls remain. The same routines continue. The same people move through their day. Yet everything feels different because their perspective has changed. And once perspective changes, life begins revealing possibilities that were hidden in plain sight all along. For the first time in a long while, they stop searching for the perfect sign. Instead, they begin trusting the quiet certainty growing inside them. It is not loud. It does not demand attention. But it is steady. And that steadiness gives them courage they didn't know they possessed. Think about this. How many extraordinary stories begin with one ordinary decision? One deep breath. One honest thought. One choice to stop pretending that nothing matters. That is exactly where your soulmate stands now. They remember moments they once overlooked. Tiny details return with surprising clarity. A conversation that seemed ordinary, a smile that lingered longer than expected, an unexpected feeling they pushed aside because the timing never seemed right. Now those memories fit together like stars forming a constellation. What once looked random now reveals a pattern. And somewhere at the center of that pattern, you remain. Not because destiny forced it. Not because someone predicted it. But because certain connections continue growing, even when they are given nothing except time and quiet reflection. Your soulmate begins realizing that real transformation never asks for perfection. It only asks for honesty. That realization removes a burden they have carried far too long. Instead of wondering whether they are enough, they begin wondering how much more life could become if they finally embraced authenticity. That single shift changes everything. Because authentic people attract authentic moments. Authentic choices create authentic futures. And authentic connections never need constant performance to survive. There is another detail unfolding behind the scenes. While your soulmate is discovering this new confidence, your own journey has also been preparing you. Challenges that once felt confusing have quietly strengthened your patience. Delays that seemed frustrating have been teaching resilience. Even the unanswered questions have sharpened your ability to recognize what truly deserves your attention. Nothing has been wasted. Every experience has added another layer to the person you are becoming. That is why this chapter feels different from all the ones before it. It is no longer about waiting for life to begin. It is about recognizing that the next chapter has already started. Perhaps this is why your heart has felt unusually reflective lately. Perhaps this is why certain thoughts keep returning. Not to distract you, but to prepare you. Because preparation often feels ordinary until the opportunity finally appears. And when that opportunity arrives, people call it luck. They never see the quiet preparation that made the moment possible. Your soulmate takes one more slow breath. There is peace where there used to be uncertainty. There is purpose where there used to be hesitation. There is hope where there used to be endless questions. If this story has spoken to something inside you, perhaps share your thoughts in the comments so others know they are not alone on their own journey. And if these moments of reflection bring value to your day, subscribing simply means you'll be here when the next chapter unfolds. But don't leave just yet. Because everything you have heard so far has been preparing for one final revelation. The reason the door needed to close. The reason silence became so important. The reason this message found you at this exact moment. None of those answers have been fully revealed yet. The final chapter gathers every clue, every quiet realization, and every unexpected turn into one complete picture. And when that last piece falls into place, you may look back at this entire journey and realize that the most important message was never hidden behind the closed door. It was quietly growing within both of you all along. Everything has led to this moment. Not because the journey is ending, but because the meaning behind every previous moment is finally ready to reveal itself. Looking back now, the closed door was never the destination. It was the beginning of an inner conversation that neither you nor your soulmate could have experienced while surrounded by constant noise. The silence was necessary. The waiting was meaningful. Even the uncertainty had a purpose. Your soulmate now understands something that once seemed impossible to explain. They realize that life is not measured by how quickly answers appear. It is measured by who you become while searching for those answers. That realization changes the way they see everything. They no longer chase certainty. They choose clarity. They no longer fear the unknown. They become curious about it. They no longer ask, "When will everything be perfect?" Instead, they quietly whisper, "What beautiful possibility is waiting just beyond the next step?" That question carries them forward with a calm confidence they have never felt before. Perhaps this message has been doing the very same thing for you. Perhaps every sentence has been gently reminding you that your greatest strength has never been found in having every answer. Your strength has always been your willingness to keep moving with hope, even when the path ahead could not be fully seen. Think carefully about everything that has unfolded. The invitation to step away from distractions. The quiet room. The closed door. The memories that returned. The questions that transformed into understanding. The courage that slowly replaced hesitation. None of those moments existed on their own. They were all connected. Just as every meaningful chapter in life connects to the next one in ways we rarely notice until much later. Your soulmate smiles again. This time, the smile is different. It is no longer filled with uncertainty. It is filled with gratitude. Gratitude for every lesson that once felt difficult. Gratitude for every delay that created wisdom. Gratitude for every unexpected turn that revealed a deeper version of themselves. They understand that nothing truly meaningful was ever lost. It was simply waiting for the right season to be recognized. And perhaps that is the greatest message hidden within today's journey. The future is not built in one dramatic moment. It is built through hundreds of quiet decisions that nobody applauds. Choosing patience over panic. Choosing understanding over assumptions. Choosing growth over comfort. Those choices rarely make headlines. Yet they shape extraordinary lives. As you continue your own path, remember this. You do not need to rush toward tomorrow. You do not need to compare your journey with anyone else's. You do not need to force what is meant to unfold naturally. Simply continue becoming the person you are capable of becoming. The rest has an incredible way of finding its place. One day, you may remember this message and realize that the real miracle was never a prediction. It was perspective. Because perspective has the power to transform ordinary moments into unforgettable turning points. So as this chapter comes to a close, carry one final thought with you. Whenever life feels loud, whenever doubt tries to drown out your inner voice, whenever the future seems wrapped in unanswered questions, remember the image of that quiet room. Remember the closed door. Remember the stillness. Not as a place to hide from life, but as a reminder that your clearest answers often appear when you give yourself permission to listen. And perhaps, somewhere beyond today's horizon, your soulmate is carrying that very same reminder. Not because the story ends here, but because every meaningful ending quietly becomes the beginning of an even greater chapter. Until then, keep your heart open, keep your vision clear, and keep moving forward with quiet confidence. Some journeys are remembered for their destination. The most extraordinary ones are remembered for the person they helped you become.